All right, friends and loyal listeners, I cannot even tell you how amazed and super excited I am about this month and our giveaways leading up to our 200th episodes. You guys have been absolutely amazing, and I want you to keep it up. So here's the deal. I just want to give you a recap of what's been going on. So first week, we had a gift coupon that went out from One Less Car Shop. So they gave out a free gift coupon to go shopping in her store, and she's in a UK based. Now, week 2, we gave away an amazing cycling cap from No Gods, No Masters to a lucky individual woman who put in a review for the podcast. And that's how you guys can win. All you have to do is these 3 things. Follow the Instagram page for the podcast, share the Instagram page for the podcast, and go to Apple Podcasts and write a review. I will be picking the winners from the reviews. So please put your Instagram handle so I can go back and check that you followed and shared the podcast. And this week, Barry Roubaix, Matt Acker has been so generous in giving a free registration to a lucky female. Why females? Well, it's to draw more women into cycling events like this. What do you think? Anyways, I'm super jazzed about this because I think I'm actually going to make the event and cross over the border. I'm crossing my fingers that's going to be able possible and go experience this epic event that is one of the largest gravel events in the world, they say. So let's recap. How do you get to win? You have to follow the podcast on Instagram, so Secrets from the Saddle Podcast. You have to share the podcast, and you go to Apple, listen to the episodes, and write a review. I mean, you don't have to listen, but it's always beneficial. We have so many amazing titles and guests in there, plus my own coaching segments. And you know what's even more cool about this is that I've been engaging in some of the guests who have shops or actual physical products or like events, race registrations to give out as gifts for the giveaway. And so that's what's super cool. It's just the collaboration that's been happening. And also I want to remind you that you can still win. If you write a review now and you don't win this week, you can win next week, the following week, or the following week. And plus our grand prize is, I have 2 grand prizes. One goes out to all the winners. Somebody gets picked there. And then the second one goes out to one lucky individual who put out a review. So you could still win in the grand prize. And so I'm looking for more and more reviews to get out on our podcast, because you know what that does? It helps drive our podcast to the top. And, you know, I just want the cycling podcast to get out to more people. It's just a really good way and to share all things cycling, right? So that's what I wanted to share with you. We're doing this all the way up to our 100th episode on March 11th, and that's when the grand prize draws or giveaways is going to happen. Please remember, follow, share, and review, and have yourself an amazing day, because you are an amazing individual, and enjoy this episode. Welcome back to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling Podcast with your host, Sylvie. And we have a truly amazing story today. I'm sitting with Terri Jaksha.
Close, Jaksha.
Jaksha. I wasn't close.
I've heard worse.
Thanks, Terri. So this is a story about true grit and determination. And I absolutely love that we were trying to figure out how we got connected. And I think I just saw a story on her on Facebook and reached out because of her, because she went plant-based. And this is, we're going to be talking about health and nutrition. But here's the story behind Terri, and she's going to be elaborating a little bit more on this. She lost her mom to cancer, and then shortly after was diagnosed with her own cancer as a single mom. Moving forward, she did she was able to obviously beat it. But the thing is that she did some serious research into nutrition and became a plant-based athlete. Now, we also have the background of being figure and body competitors. So that is even greater reason to bring her out here. Woo! But we're going to talk about like how she came back from cancer. She had also a very serious bike crash, which left her almost paralyzed and fracturing her hand. And I'm so glad that we're connected here, and she's going to tell you, and she's going to share with you what she's been up to. So welcome, Terri, to the podcast.
Thank you, Sylvie. Nice to be here.
All right, awesome. Now, I always love to get started with asking my guests, how did you get into cycling before we get into all the good stuff?
Sure. My first exposure to bicycling was in high school, and it was more of a way for me to gain my independence before I could drive a car. So I saved up my allowance, my babysitting money, and bought my first road bicycle, and I just loved it. And I would spend hours, on a Saturday afternoon and just pack up my radio and, some snacks and head out and ride 50, sometimes 100 miles on a Saturday, when I'm 15, 16 years old. And I just loved it.
Wow.
And then once I got my car and went off to college, kind of put the bike in the garage and never saw it again, and didn't pick it up again until, almost 35 years later. After my kids were born, I needed a bicycle to pedal around with them and take them around the block. So that's quite a big gap in between there.
I think that's probably a very typical story of a lot of us who is like enjoyed biking, through college, through high school. And then once we got our license or moved away, the bike became obsolete, came back, picked it up when we were older, kids. So I think you're right on track, but let's get into how you came about finding out that you had cancer, and into your research about nutrition and plant-based, moving into a plant-based lifestyle.
Sure.
I'd love to get right into that.
Sure. So first of all, I grew up eating kind of the standard American diet, the standard Western diet, and meat and potatoes, that type of thing. And then when I was in my bodybuilding, I started bodybuilding in college and did that for about 25 years. I even kind of went a bit overboard, thinking, you really need your protein if you're going to build muscle. And so I followed more of an Atkins type of diet. So really heavy protein and then a little bit of fat and almost no carbs. So I did that for a number of years, and it worked for bodybuilding. I was able to get strong and, compete and have some success there. But in 2014 is when I started doing triathlons, and but I just wasn't feeling quite well. And like you said, in 2016 I had a cancer diagnosis, and I was terrified. I'd actually lost both my dad and my mom to cancer, and so I just assumed I was going to go through treatment and die, just like they had. So I went through radiation and chemo, and lost most of my hair, and was very weak and hospitalized and the whole bit. And thankfully I pulled out, and I was able to come back, but I was terrified that the cancer would return. And so I was really emphasizing at all my doctor appointments with my oncologist, what can I do in my life? What am I doing wrong? What can I change to give myself a better chance? Because I don't want to just survive. I don't want to just make it for 2 or 3 or 4 years. I want to live a long time and be healthy. And they just insisted there's nothing you can do. Nothing you did caused this cancer, and there's nothing you can do. It's just bad luck. And I even went to the extent of I went to an oncology nutritionist, because I thought, well, maybe the doctor doesn't know it. Let me go to an oncology nutritionist. They're going to know better. And I got the same advice. They basically just said, keep your weight up, eat anything you want, have milkshakes, you can do ice cream, you can do, eggs and cheese and anything you want, just, keep your strength up. And I thought, okay, that just doesn't sound right. And so,
oh my gosh.
so seriously, what saved me was, YouTube, honestly, because
yeah.
while I was home on disability for a few weeks, recovering from the cancer treatment, I started, just Googling what can I find, who else has been in this situation. And I found a few people who had treated their cancer naturally, or added nutrition to their cancer treatment, and then they were still alive 10, 15 years later. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do whatever they're doing, I don't care what it is. And so, I mean, overnight I found the main source of my information was a fellow named Chris Wark. Chris beat cancer, and he had been diagnosed in his early 20s with colon cancer. He'd had surgery. Gosh. He had surgery, but then they wanted him to do chemo, and he really didn't want to do that because he was young. He wanted to have kids. He didn't know how that would affect him. So he had done research. So I ended up. I was engaged at the time, and I decided to move the wedding up. And my husband and I turned a cancer healing retreat with Chris Ward down in Costa Rica into our honeymoon. So we went down there in the spring of 2017 and learned even more. So there was a number of doctors and natural healing practitioners that were down speaking, and then I can't remember how many, maybe 50 cancer patients and things. And so we were all learning together, like, how can we survive this and how can we thrive? And it was wonderful. I mean, it was on a mango farm, and we were staying in tents in the jungle. I mean, it was just fabulous. But so anyway, so through that experience, I learned how important, nutrition was. And so in the big changes for me, the big takeaways were meat and dairy were not my friend. So overdosing on that for all those years did nothing to help me, and probably accelerated my cancer. And so, at age 49, I was, had my cancer not gotten under control, that would have been the end of my life. Which, after being so focused on health my whole life, no smoking, no drinking, I worked out every day, to die from cancer, that just it didn't make sense to me. So my only vice was my diet, and my diet was what I thought was healthy at the time, because I had been listening to the wrong people. So I ended up giving up the meat and the dairy, and really just focusing on juicing, which I had never done before. So I've done juicing every day for the past 5 years since then, and just eating a lot of raw food, big salads. It really just overdosing on nutrition. And the funny thing is again, at that point I had been in triathlon, just kind of dabbling for a couple of years. And I thought, well, if I give up this, meat and dairy and everything, there goes my athletic career. I wasn't, a professional or anything, but I took it seriously, like through the bodybuilding, and, it was important to me. And I thought, well, if I give up that, there goes all my strength and all my endurance and everything. But I didn't care at that point. It's like, would I rather be an athlete or would I rather be alive? And so I wanted to be alive. So I thought, I don't care. And while I was down in Costa Rica, I had expressed my concerns about that. And somebody said, well, have you ever heard of a guy named Rich Roll? And I said, no, I don't know who that is. And they said, well, you need to look him up. I believe it was Theo Hansen who was hosting the event down in Costa Rica. And he had recommended contacting Rich Roll. And so I came back home, did some research. He had a podcast that I started listening to, and oh my gosh, his story was amazing. So he is an ultra endurance athlete, and he's completely plant-based. And I mean, one of his claims to fame was, even before the Iron Cowboy days, he had done 5 Ironman distance triathlons within a week on 5 different Hawaiian islands. So like back-to-back days, he would do full Ironman, just with himself. And so, yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, okay. Not an actual event.
Right. Just the distances. Yeah. But yeah, and he only ate plants. It's like, wow, that's incredible. And then I started to feel, I started to experience it myself, and I couldn't believe it. It's like, I'm not only am I surviving cancer? But I have more energy. I am recovering faster.
Mm-hmm.
It did not hurt my strength. I mean, it was just like, why did I not know this years ago? So I was, I know a lot of people say, the people who have survived cancer say it was a good thing for me. It was a wake-up call to focus on, important things in life or whatever. But for me, it really, I mean, it nothing else would have gotten me to change my diet that drastically, if I was not facing, life or death. And so I'm thankful that it got me to do the research and, not only gave me my health back, but, just so much knowledge. And, so at this point, I'm just excited to spread the word about how wonderful this is.
I'm really excited about that because I love hearing people taking their lives in their own hands, not like literally, but in that sense, especially when you're getting that kind of information and feedback from doctors. Doctors were not, and like you can call this controversial discussion here, but we all know that doctors were not educated in nutrition. And it surprises me that you actually went to a nutritionist and that's what you got too, but not really. It was the time. Like, if you think about back then, I mean, we grew up on meat and potatoes too. We grew up on a farm and we drank whole milk from the bulk tank. And I'm actually grateful for that because I think whole milk in its whole state is way better. The more I read now than what they do to milk after it's left the farm. So, and I stopped drinking milk when I left my house because it's not the same. But I love that you made that call, and so many people don't. There's so many people that I talk to and they're in that state and they're like, the doctor said. I said, but do you really feel that that's right? Like, do you know what I mean? Because we all know good nutrition is the way to so many things. Like you said, like, beating cancer. I hate to say it, and I'm going to say it out loud, beating cancer. Because and heart disease and obesity and diabetes, all these things are really like, and let's talk about boosting the immune system at the same time.
Exactly.
Because illness, like drugs, wreck your stomach, and that's the center of the whole temple. I just say, like chemo, great way to kill everything that's good in your body.
A lot of collateral damage. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you decided and, just sort of sitting back and thinking about the bodybuilding, because I think about some of the diet plans that I was put on that I'm like, are you serious? Like, you want me to eat that like for a month? And I'm just like, thankfully, it was just a diet and it lasted a small amount of time because anybody who continues on, like you said, you did it for 25 years. And I'm sure it wasn't like 100% for 25 years, but on off those diets, it's not good.
Right. And, I mean, I would eat, when I was bodybuilding, I was eating, 6 eggs a day and, a pound of lean, grass-fed ground beef, but it was still, it was still beef and the chicken and the tuna. And it's, your body doesn't need it. And it's actually detrimental.
Yeah. So I was just like, because I was just thinking about what I used to eat, but I mean, that was a while ago and it was cyclical kind of thing. Like I did it in cycles. And actually I used it for my training for cycling. That's what I did when I did my bodybuilding or my figure competitions. I would say it wasn't bodybuilding. I didn't look like a bodybuilder, but I mean, I used it to train and get lean and strong for my cycling season. And that's what I did many years. Train through the winter, compete, ride my bike in the summer, train through it. So I did that. But how did it feel like, just taking your like your life in your own hands, after hearing all that and just knowing that there is something better for you?
Right. I mean, I mean, a lot of people thought I was crazy at the time, right? Because I mean, anyone that says that they're plant-based or vegan or anything, you just immediately get branded as some kind of a lunatic. But for me, it's like I don't really care what people think about me, because I can feel the difference, and the proof is in the pudding, if you will. So yeah, I mean, it felt good to not have to rely on other people, and so I kind of started to, I guess, have less faith in the medical establishment. And I would go in for my checkups and my scans and everything like that, but it's they just know what they're trained in, right? And they don't train nutrition in medical school, so it's not like they're mean people or they're trying to give you bad information. They just don't know it. And so and what encourages me is when I'll go into a doctor for a checkup, and they'll not only see how well I'm doing, how fast I'm recovering from different things, whether it be the cancer or the broken bones and things like that. They're actually curious, like, what are you doing? And and I've had nurses ask me to continue sending them information, and they're so it's great that there are people out there in the medical community with open minds. And so the more I can put a spark in their mind and have them go follow the research, the more that they can help their patients too.
It would be great if that was across the board, because there's so many doctors. But but then it would impact the pharmaceutical business, and that wouldn't be good, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Who's paying? Yeah, who's sponsoring the medical schools? It's medical equipment companies, and pharmaceuticals, and
so they get paid a good kickback for prescriptions.
Right.
We're getting really controversial here, but it's true. Do you know doctors get like 40% back or something ridiculous like that for every prescription? So that's a big chunk of their salary, and eating salad is not. So let's talk about the immune system, because like when we were talking before, Terri, like, both of us are on the same page. Eating healthy means building a strong immune system. Building a strong immune system means your body is equipped to fight off any type of virus, cancer, illness, heart disease, high cholesterol, you name it. So let's talk about your immune system now, because also being super healthy, as you know, accelerates recovery of injury, like neck and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as immunity goes, I mean, before I came to eat plant-based, I would get usually I didn't get seriously ill. I mean, because I was exercising and doing some things healthy, but I used to get 2 or 3 colds a year that would knock me out, and I couldn't train for a few days, and and just felt yucky, and but I mean, honestly, in the past 5 years, I've not even had one cold. I've not missed a day of work from being ill of any kind of an illness. The only time I've missed is being involved in the crash and surgery that followed that. But yeah, so I mean, no matter what germs are going on around me, I live with my daughter right now, and she just in the past few months, she's had a pneumonia and influenza A, and even being in close contact, I've not been able to escape those infections. So yeah, I'm completely confident that the plant-based is kind of turned things around for me, and almost made me bulletproof as far as getting infections. I have to be careful, and it's not just nutrition. You have to sleep, and and have low stress, and other things as well. But nutrition's a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, as far as the so there are actually 2 injuries that my plant-based helped me recover faster from. In 2018 is when I first got a bug to do an Ironman race. So I'd done some shorter races in the past, and I thought, you know what, I had met someone who had done an Ironman, just a regular person at one of my races, and I thought, oh my God, this is not just elite people who do this. Like normal everyday people can train and do this race. Why can't I do it? So I thought, you know what, let's do this. And so my husband at the time and I had decided let's try doing a marathon first, because we, neither one of us had ever run that far before. So it's like, let's try a marathon. We'll try a marathon. We better figure out if we can do the marathon, because, after swimming and biking all day and then have to run a marathon, it's like, okay, we better at least be able to run a marathon by itself. So 2018, we decided, let's sign up for a marathon. And literally a week later, I went to the gym to do a treadmill workout over lunchtime, and I tripped on a step going to the locker room.
That's so.
And it's called a Liz Frank injury, and basically I dislocated the bones in my foot, and and at first
around your ankle.
No, like all the metatarsals, so the like the toe bones, like
wow.
So I kind of landed like on my big toe, and then it just kind of jammed everything backwards. But yeah, it sounds awful, and it felt. I screamed from the pain. I couldn't believe how much pain there was. And I had, at that point in my life, I had never broken a bone, never twisted an ankle, nothing like that. So I had no idea. So
is it like stubbing your toe, but 100 times worse?
Right. Like all your force is like, it's like all your weight is like coming down on it all at once. And, and of course I'd never heard of such a thing before. And, so I sat down on a chair a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I gotta, I've only got an hour for lunch. I gotta hurry up and get up on the treadmill. And they're like, yeah, I don't think you want to stand on that right now. So went to the emergency room, and apparently this injury is one that is often misdiagnosed because there's no broken bones. It's just everything's dislocated. And so thankfully, the guy who happened to be in the emergency room that day said he had just read about this injury like that week. And so he knew about it. He's like, you know what? I think this is a Liz Frank. It's like, what in the world is that? And so, and I had went home, Googled it, and, try to find like, okay, what's the best surgeon that knows this? Because I got to get that fixed and get back on my marathon training, And so luckily that weekend I found a surgeon, and within a day, he scheduled me for surgery. I got two plates and 10 screws put in my left foot. And okay,
then, I'm going to show you guys a picture of this. Like, I'm going to try and put these up at the end, because Terri has sent me some pretty impressive pictures of her, but I think you can see this pretty clearly. Look at, this is it, right?
Yep. That was my Liz Frank.
Wow. Okay. And her, remember, she didn't break any bones.
Yep. That's just,
isn't that ridiculous? Look at that. I thought that was a broken, but this is just dislocation, literally.
Right. Yeah. And they said it's one of the worst foot injuries that you can, like the most complicated, the hardest to recover from foot injuries. If I'd broken a bone, I could have, put a cast on it and been better in a couple of, months. But so I got the surgery, and I couldn't walk. There was no weight bearing at all for 3 months. So again, I had signed up for the marathon. I had basically 6 months from the time I broke my or dislocated my foot until the marathon. So the first 3 months out of my 6-month training cycle, I was on crutches, so I couldn't even put weight on it. And so that left me with 3 months left to train. And so I started my physical therapy at the 3 month point. And they basically laughed in my face. I mean, I literally was in tears because my physical therapist laughed at me when I told him I was running a marathon that year, and was told that most people don't even walk correctly after they have that injury.
Yeah. Most people, but that's right. Like,
so I kind of pushed the envelope a little bit. I found there's actually a treadmill called an anti-gravity treadmill, where they put you in a stirrup, and they kind of like boost you up a little bit, and then you can run without putting all the weight on your foot. And so that's
it's like the motion.
Yes, exactly. So you can start the cardio, you can get the cardio going before you can put all the weight on your foot. And so I did some of that, and then just, headed outside and started, putting full weight on it, and it hurt like hell, but like I don't have time to waste. I've got, a marathon in a couple months. And so I ended up, and like I said, I'm not a runner to begin with. And and that was the first time ever attempting a marathon. I'd never even run like a half marathon or anything. So, but 6 months after that foot injury, I went out and did Twin Cities Marathon. And I mean, not only did I do the marathon, I didn't even like walk through one water stop. I ran the whole 26.2 miles straight. And so after that, I was just so thrilled. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I could, do that, especially with the injury. I didn't think I could do it just regardless, So I think, okay, if I can do that, I can do Ironman. So that was kind of the beginning of my Ironman journey. And so then I had one year from that point. It's like, okay, I just have
okay. So it was good, well placed out. You were just
right. Yep. So I
did the running waters.
Right. So I did the running in 2018, and then I thought, we'll do a marathon or a full Ironman in 2019. So. Okay. So, bought a bike trainer for indoors. First time I'd had a bike trainer. So I trained indoors that winter, bought a treadmill, ran indoors that winter. And then the next spring, I just really hit it hard and, a lot of miles on the road on the bike. And, just kind of made up a plan. I wasn't really following I didn't have a coach and didn't really follow a plan, but, just kind of intuitively trained like I normally did. And got all the way up to August for the September race. So the Ironman is in September. And I was on my last long training ride of the year. So it was going to be a, 80 to 100 mile bike ride. And I headed out on my own. I got about 40 miles into it. And earlier, my husband we would train on the road sometimes. And, cars are kind of risky. And he'd gotten bumped by a pickup truck and almost sent in the ditch. But, I always worried. It's like, I don't really like riding on roads. I don't trust the cars and, with them texting. Yeah. So I thought to be safe, I rode a lot of my long 100-mile rides in a park by my house. So it was there's a 15-mile loop around this park, and I would just go ride it, 6 or 7 times. And there's my workout for a Saturday. And so I had gone to the park like I did every Saturday. I was on, I believe, my second loop.
Hey friends, we're going to take a quick break, and I'm going to tell you about a workshop for indoor cyclists, Peloton riders, Swift riders, outdoor cyclists that is so revolutionary you'll wonder why you've never heard about it. So, we all know that improving your cycling skills, whether inside or outside, is important. But how do we know what we need to train and how to get started? Let me just add that this workshop, like I mentioned, is perfect for indoor cycling and anybody who rides on the Peloton. So the good news is that there is a lot of ways to improve your cycling skills. You could take a class or hire a coach, follow a friend, or continue struggling year after year. But these options can be expensive and time-consuming. The solution? I have created an online cycling skills workshop for female cyclists. It's a safe environment where I go over the 4 essential skills that I have identified as a cycling coach, working and coaching over 900 women in the past 14 years, building confidence as cyclists. So here they are. The 4 areas are pedal stroke efficiency, hill climbing, strength training, and speed, with an added bonus on nutrition. This workshop will cover these essential skills in 4 one-hour sessions, where I will explain, demonstrate, and have you practice the skill. At the end of each workshop, homework in the way of drills will be handed out for you to practice. It's the fastest and easiest way to get all the essential cycling skills that you can apply immediately, either online or outside on the road. The recordings are also available. As an additional bonus, you will have access to weekly live strength training workouts and yoga. In just 4 weeks, guaranteed, this workshop can turn any cyclist into a better rider no matter what their skill level bike they're sitting on. So how do you register? You go to cyclingskillspro.com and register for one of our monthly workshops. I look forward to sharing my cycling skills and tips to help make you a more skilled, confident cyclist on the road, on your Peloton, on Swift, or Indoor Trainer. See you there and see you online.
Someone was coming down a steep hill and then taking that corner, and
like you're both were going this way, like no, he just kind of, or he was coming the opposite direction.
He was coming the opposite direction. So he's and it's a blind corner, so there's trees in the corner, so I don't see him coming down the hill.
Yeah.
He doesn't see me on the path around the corner, and so he came down the hill too fast, and he overcompensated in that corner and like swooped into my lane, and I didn't see him until he was just a few feet in front of me. It's like all of a sudden he came around the corner and he was in my handlebars, and it's like I didn't even have time to scream, much less get out of the way. I mean, I remember the thought that flashed in my mind is, what the hell is this guy doing in my bam? You know, it's like the impact was incredible. I mean, at the time I weighed 115 pounds. And I believe he was 250, 260, something like that. So he was over twice my size.
A big guy,
and he had the speed behind him. And so he basically took me off my bike. Me and my bike went backwards. I landed flat on my back. My head snapped back, broke my neck. He broke my ribs. He broke several bones in my hand, and then also dislocated my hand as well.
Okay, we got pictures of that too, everybody. You want to see those? Okay, just a second.
And then also a concussion. So yeah, I mean, thankfully, my helmet cracked, but thankfully it saved my head, because I would have been dead had I not been wearing the helmet.
Seriously.
And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. Everyone wears a helmet on their bike, but
they better be. We can't be friends if you don't.
Right. Yeah. So
here's a picture of her hand.
Yeah, I think there was probably 9 pins that they had to put in there.
All those pins,
and they were actually coming out of my skin. So they put the pins.
Oh, look at that!
Like I had 2 of them that were out of my hand, and so they were like poking out like Frankenstein for at least 6 weeks. I believe I had to have that situation going.
Really?
So it was.
What if you caught something on that?
Yeah, I would have gauze wrapped around it, and that it was just awful.
Okay. Well, I guess so.
But
like this, wait a second. I got another picture. She sent me lots.
When I was on the trainer, it's like I kind of had a hard splint, and that would protect it somewhat. So I had the neck brace. So they immediately put plates and screws in my neck, and then and then I was in the neck brace for 3 months, and then I kind of had that nice little hand wrapped up there.
You look fabulous.
Fabulous. I think that was maybe 3 days after the surgeries when I went out. So my husband and I had been training for Ironman, so he went out and did it, and I cheered him on. So I went with my cast, I was crying the whole entire weekend because I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be racing. And it's like, I came back from cancer. I came back from the foot injury. It's like, I felt like I deserved to be there. And it's like, and again, here I am riding on a bike path to be safe from cars, and another bicyclist, almost paralyzed me. So it's like, how in the world, this is just so unfortunate.
That kind of scenario happened to me, but I didn't end up in that situation. But I was coming up this bike path to lights, and there was a bush, and this guy, so I was just on my civvy bike, like going to school, and this guy must have been running the red light to get across the traffic, because he came straight off of that intersection and just ran right into me and threw me off. But I had my helmet, and he didn't. I have no idea how he survived, like what happened to him. And I just it was like, I got up, shook myself off, like, oh my God, what just happened? And he was just like laying there. I'm like, and he got up and biked off. I was like, that was it just, like you said, it just happened so fast. I didn't even see it coming. Like, I must have been coming around the bush, and he just like smacked right into me, and he went flying, and my bike was heavy. I don't know. Anyways, I was just like, holy crap. And thankfully I was okay. I had my helmet on. He didn't. Like, he wasn't typical cyclist. Like, he was, like older bike kind of
just commuting.
Yeah, like I don't, he's a different guy, but you know what I mean? So I'm just like, not the typical person who would be biking with a helmet on, like a true cyclist. Maybe he had stolen the bike. He was just trying to get away.
That could be. That's why he's going so fast.
Yeah, that's the type of.
Ride it like you stole it. Yep.
Yeah, he certainly was. But that was one of the craziest crashes. And it didn't happen. Like I was going so slow because I was coming up and he just plowed right into me. And he got the worst of it, thankfully. But just like shit. But oh my gosh. So you come in and you came back from the hand and the neck. Like,
right. I mean, and again, the doctors couldn't believe, how quickly my bones were healing. I mean, I was in the hospital for a week after the crash, and I remember distinctly they had put the screws in, and I was actually on a ventilator for a couple of days because they had also, like, my throat had been smashed in the crash, and they didn't think I'd be able to breathe on my own. So, like, after my surgery, I woke up and I still had a ventilator in my, and I do not wish that on my worst enemy. I mean, yeah, that is not something you want to have, breathing on a machine while you're awake. So they actually knocked me out again because it was like so distressing for me. So they kind of put me in a medically, induced coma so I could heal. So,
right.
So they would be able to take me off the ventilator. And so, yeah, that was a terrifying experience. But, they had me in the room, and, all of a sudden it's like, I think on the second or third day I was there, it's like, okay, I feel like I have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to get up and walk in there and get off my bed, start walking. And oh my God, alarms start going off and nurses are running in my room. And they're like, what are you doing up? It's like, I'm just going across the room. And they're like, we've never had someone, with that severe of an injury. Like,
I'd show you a picture of her in the bed, but I'm not going to.
But they couldn't believe that with a, severe neck injury, that I was able to even stand up and, move or whatever. So yeah, I was able to get out of the hospital much sooner than they expected. And then, would go in for follow-up appointments, and they couldn't believe how quickly my bone was healing, in my neck. And so it's, they credit both the fitness level for being an athlete, and then also, the nutrition. So, it's
amen to that. Like, I love hearing that, because people, you have no idea the strength of what it does to your body for so many, like Terri's story, like recovering quicker, like healing faster. The strength of good nutrition and a good, strong body. Like, oh my God, Terri, I want to cry for you. Like, cry in a good way,
But yeah, so for me, it was really tough, because now it's like you're basically starting over again. So here I am, I'm out of the hospital, and I started, the first thing I could do, was bike. So I got on my trainer with my neck brace on, and started doing that. And then I believe next I could start running. And so I'm literally running through the neighborhood with the neck brace on and my hand in a cast. That's how I would start doing my running.
You see this cast, people?
That's one of my physical therapy things, to try to get my fingers.
Oh, okay. I'm like, okay.
Directions. So that I would have to do that for 3 hours a day, exercises with that contraption.
Wow.
And to try to get, because my fingers were basically seized up in one position,
right,
from healing. So going in, so at the end of 2019 was the crash. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to train and, get ready to do this Ironman next year. Well, we all know what happened in the winter of 2019. So just as I finally got back in the water, I got cleared, my neck brace came off. I could finally start swimming again, swam for about a month, and then they shut the pools down for COVID. And it's like, you gotta be kidding me, and I'm thinking, okay, it's just going to be a couple of week thing. There's some flu going around and whatever. And yeah, that lasted much longer. So I kept training, because they didn't call off the races, so I kept training the whole summer of 2020, thinking Ironman's going to happen. And that was when I kind of started. And then slowly, like, little races early in the summer were canceled. So the weekends that I would normally do races, I just would go do long bike rides. And then the next thing I know, I I suddenly had a streak going where I was riding 100 miles every Saturday. And so I just kind of kept going with that, and I ended up riding 20 centuries in 2020.
Oh
so
my God.
And these were all by myself. I was out, I would just take off and go ride for 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever it was. And but yeah, I had hoped to do Ironman that year, and then they canceled it, so I was kind of heartbroken. And so then since I already had the time off from work, I went out to Madison on Ironman weekend just by myself. And I thought, well, I'm going to do something epic today. And there were some people who just went and did the race on their own. And I thought, you know what, that's a lot to do. I would rather just bike. And so there's a loop in the Wisconsin Ironman course. There's a 40-mile loop, and you do that twice during the 112-mile race. And I had gone out and trained on it a couple of times prior to that. And so obviously two loops is 80 miles, 3 loops, 120 miles. And I had done 3 loops before. And I saw someone had made a post that they had done 160 miles. They did the loop 4 times in a day. And I thought, okay, that sounds sufficiently epic. So I'm going to go try doing that. So that's what I did. I think it was about a 12-hour ride. And I think I only got off the bike for maybe 10 minutes total during the 12 hours. I mean, I rode the whole time. And I self-supported. So I just, brought my own water, brought my own food, and rode 160 miles by myself. So then again, it's like, okay, now here we go again. So starting from scratch again for a whole nother year of training. And then in 2021, thankfully they had the race. I made it out there. And honestly, I was just, I was just happy to be able to get to the starting line because.
Got pictures here too. Hold on. Like, she sent me lots of great pictures.
So after everything I'd been through, it's like, if I can just get to the starting line, I'd be happy. But yep.
Oh my gosh, seriously, right?
There's my bike. I got the DI2 on the bike. So yeah.
Love it.
With my injuries, even with my bike, when I crashed the bike, it didn't hurt. My original bike was a Katana Roo, and the bike wasn't injured at all. Nothing. I think one of my shifting levers, was bent a little bit, but it's like nothing happened to the bike. I was a total wreck, but I could no longer ride the bike because my hand doesn't work to shift manual shifters anymore. And my wrist doesn't bend. So, so I had to buy a new bike. Oh, darn. Everyone needs a reason to buy a new bike. So I bought a new bike. And, so yeah, I love that bike. So I just rode it so much. So in 2021, not only did I do Ironman, I also increased my streak. So I did 21 centuries, so 2,100-mile rides this year. So I think what was my mileage for this year? I mean, for all 3 things, for swimming, biking, and running, were the most I'd ever done in my life. And I wasn't trying to do that, but I ended up, I biked 3,900 miles this year, which is, 6,300 kilometers in one summer. So yeah, that's
3 times what I did last year.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know how, my butt, got a little angry at times, and my feet, but you get used to being out there. And so I fell in love with it. So I finished that, and I was lucky that I was featured at Ironman Wisconsin race, and they did a story about me that they played at the welcome dinner. And then there were no pros at the race this year. So normally they have a little motorcade follow the pros around and videotape them and stuff. They didn't have pros this year. And so
I am the pro.
They followed me, and there were a few other athletes that they highlighted. So that was kind of fun, riding on my bike and having a motorcycle pull up next to me with a camera. It's like, wow, this is exciting. So anyway, so I got to be featured there. And so my story started to get out about, my comeback and everything. And at that point, they were really more focused on the injury and doing the Ironman. But really, kind of the backstory is the whole nutrition, and how that helped to fuel my comeback, not just from the cancer, but the crashes. And so I decided to kind of take a big step at the end of 2021. And I'm starting my own nutrition coaching business and motivational.
Tell us all about it, because this is like, this is what we're gonna talk like. Yeah, so we're gonna tell us about your new business. Yay!
So up until this point, I've spent 32 years being a computer geek. I was a computer programmer for 32 years, and it's like, and as fun as that is and rewarding, it's like, you know what, I find myself when I get into conversations with people about, you know, fitness or nutrition or whatever. I mean, that really lights my fire, and I just get so excited about that. So it's like, this is really what I need to be doing. And I, you know, so I, you know, it's like, how can I do that? How can I, you know, help other people, you know, recover from things and, you know, have their own comeback and, you know, maybe prevent some of the diseases, you know, that most, you know, people die from, right? It's like, there's so much, you know, not only is a nutritious diet good for recovering, but it's also great for just avoiding, you know, like you said before, right? The heart disease, the diabetes, the cancers. I mean, it's, you know, there's so much good that comes out of it. So yep, I'm looking forward. So 2022 is kind of my year. I'm launching, my company is called Plant-Based Comeback. And
I love it.
And so, yep, I will be doing one-on-one coaching for that. And just so excited to get the message out and help other people be healthy. And, you know, and like I say, it's, you know, I know there's interest out there. And I mean, honestly, if there's just one person that I can, you know, help move in that direction. I mean, and again, it's not that everyone has to go, you know, hog wild like I did and go, you know, plant-based overnight, but it's like just learning, you know, just moving in that direction has, you know, profound benefits and, you know, can, you know, help in so many ways. So it's like, if I can help people do that, I mean, that would be so fulfilling and, you know, add meaning to my life. So that's where I'm heading.
I hear you. And I'm so excited for you. I love your logo. Okay, I got another picture for you guys. Okay, so if you guys haven't figured out, you can see all this stuff on YouTube, but look at that. Isn't that cool? Little apple for a bicep. I love it.
I agonized over that. That was one of the bigger, and I'm not an artist, so I cannot take credit for drawing that. So I had some wonderful designers come up with ideas and had my friends vote on, you know, which one they like the best. And so, yeah, it's really exciting. Something I've never done before. I mean, when I went to college originally, I have a business degree, but like I said, I did computer programming, you know, ever since then. And so it's like, I'm trying to, you know, think, okay, put on my business hat for now. And, you know, how can I, you know, get this company launched and out to as many people as possible and help as many people as possible. So it's, yeah, just kind of a new adventure for me.
Now we're going to have to be taking your business degree and applying it to now your business, right? And getting yourself set up with all the new fancy systems that are online.
Exactly.
I've been working that through for a couple of years now. It's just like, oh my gosh, there's so many things out there that can make your business systemize your business.
Right. Well, and when I got my business degree, we didn't even have computers to do accounting.
I know.
So, I mean, I graduated in 1990 from college. So yeah, it's a whole different world here, but just so, and it's just so weird. I look at my life and it's just the progression it's made. It just all kind of makes sense. It's like everything feels like it was leading me to this place. And, you know, this is where I belong and this is what I need to be doing. So
what besides launching your business, what else do you have on the schedule for the summer? Like in Wisconsin, what's it like presently with regards to the pandemic? I have to ask because now in Quebec, it's like lockdown.
Yeah, it's right now in the States. I'm actually in Minnesota, which is right next to Wisconsin. But yeah,
okay, Minnesota.
Yeah, it's right now we're fully open. I mean, our pools are open, our gyms are open, our restaurants are open. They did just reinstitute a mask mandate in the city of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So up until yesterday, that wasn't in place. So yeah, they're starting to get a little bit more cautious, but right now they haven't closed down anything yet. So thankfully I can still keep swimming. I mean, luckily I can do my biking and my running in my living room. But, you know, I'm hoping, you know, by the time spring comes around, everything will be back to normal again. so I'm fully expecting races to be held this coming year. I did go ahead and sign up for Wisconsin again. It's, I looked at doing other races, but for one, it's the 20th anniversary of Ironman in Wisconsin, and it's going to be held on September 11th, which is kind of a special day in America. Yeah. So I just thought that was too special not to do. So I'm going to try to come back for a second year in a row. And I thought it would actually be fun to do the race without the spotlight on me. So it's like,
yeah,
I must admit, I was a little bit self-conscious. It's like, okay, if I do something stupid and tip over my bike at a water stop, I'm going to have that on camera. So now with the pressure off, I can just go out and do it and enjoy the race, and hopefully go back and see some friends that I met this year. And yes, I am actually quite an introvert, so for me to get out there and like make friends is out of the ordinary, or out of my comfort zone. But it's just I love sport and I love nutrition, so I get excited about it, and I can overcome my introversion in those areas.
I think we're all kind of like that, because I feel very introverted too, but I pushed myself a lot to get out of that phase. Like if I was here at home, I could easily stay by myself for days and days and not talk to anybody, right? Like just do my own thing, putter around, and got my little hobbies, my little routine. And, you probably never knew I existed. It was like, I was actually pushing myself to get out there. And you're going to have to find that now that you're online, you're going to have to do all that, get into Facebook stories and build your business. Oh yeah. Well, you can always reach out. I can help you. So now I have one last question. Now, since you're moving into your plant-based comeback business, if I was to ask you, so I am for some help moving into more of a plant-based. So say I am a carnivore, but I'd like to, I'd like to have best of both. Like to be able to, really enjoy a plant-based lifestyle. You know what? And I guess I've always wondered what that was. Can you just share a little bit more about how, what a plant-based diet looks like, I guess you could say? I hate using the word diet, your lifestyle. Because it's always been a big question for me.
Sure. So it sounds like you're plant curious. I've heard that term. I
like that, plant curious. I love vegetables and everything. So it's a huge part of my diet, my lifestyle. But if I were to go completely off the meat, which it will never happen, but I do like to, incorporate it in. Sure. Because I think it's important to have both.
Sure. And yeah, and definitely, moving towards plant-based is better than, not, right? So it's like, and if you're going to keep some meat in your diet, better to avoid kind of the factory farm stuff. If wild game is, healthier than anything farmed. And,
we do some of that actually.
Yeah. So, or again, the wild caught salmon, even though I'm plant-based, occasionally, I might have a little bit of salmon. So I'm not militant about it, I guess. It's like,
oh, good.
It's not totally cut and dry. I'll have some honey, sometimes. I know some people don't, I know the vegans don't like to eat honey because the bees produce the honey and you're stealing the honey from the bees, and but there are health aspects to honey. So it's like, well, again, it's health is what brought me to this way of eating. And so that's kind of my focus. Right. But no, like you said, it's generally, what I would recommend is, moving towards, you're basically going to focus on, your whole grains, and your vegetables, and your fruits and your nuts and seeds and mushrooms are fabulous. And, and all those things are, anti-cancer, just wonderful, wonderful
Okay.
days.
I'm there.
Yeah. So, but you think about the Western diet, people are eating meat and dairy 3 to 6 times a day, right? I mean, because you're almost every meal, you've got your sausage and your bacon and your eggs for breakfast and your hamburger for lunch and your steak or your pizza, pepperoni pizza for dinner. I mean, that's like just normal for most people. And then you're, drinking some milk, eating some cheese, whatever, so if you think to go from 3 to 6 times a day to, if you're able to cut down to just a few meals a week, I mean, that's tremendous. That's like a 90% improvement right there.
Right.
And, and even, and some people might just start small and do a meatless Monday, right? It's,
I like that idea.
And then if it's like, okay, and part of what I will be helping people do is come up with meal ideas, or, like what, I don't know what to do for breakfast, plant-based. I'm so used to eating bacon and eggs. What do I do? And, coming up with, easy ideas is, take along food and, things like that. So, there's just so many different recipes out there, and, there's resources online and cookbooks and everything like that. And it's, and me, I mean, one thing that I've had trouble doing is finding time to, explore a lot of the recipes. So I kind of get set on, 1 or 2, things, and I just keep making it over and over again. And so that's
the bodybuilder in you.
Yeah.
Knows it plain as day.
Right. Exactly. Just grunt it out, and,
easy peasy, the same every day.
Right. But to make it more, appealing to other people, and what I like to do too is, if I'm going to a picnic or a family event or something like that, bring something delicious that's plant-based, and, other people might think, hey, this isn't so weird, it tastes good. And, I might, maybe I would want to make that at some point. And, just learning delicious things, salads or dips, or, there's so many things you can pretty much eat plant-based. And there is a distinction too. I mean, you can be plant-based and you can be just as unhealthy as someone that's eating a standard American diet, because there's so much processed vegan food out there right now, right? So some of the fake meats and things like that. And I guess the way I look at it is, if people use that maybe as a bridge to eat better, like, okay, I used to eat chicken nuggets every day, but now I'm going to eat these artificial chicken nuggets that are made of plants. that's a step in the right direction, It's
I guess
getting away, and it helps the animals, and it, so there's other benefits to that. It's, maybe better for the environment, whatever. So, there's other advantages of going plant-based besides just the nutrition side of it. So it's like, that might be a strategy for helping, people make that move. But then, finding ways like, okay, well, maybe then, you can eventually even stop with, the processed foods and try to go, what I try to do more myself, and what I recommend is more of a whole food plant-based diet. So it's just minimally processed, right? So trying to give up, because Twinkies are plant-based, but I don't recommend building your diet around, eating Twinkies all day. So
there's a lot of things like that, like chips,
French fries. Yeah, it's like you can have a very unhealthy diet being plant-based, but if you try to avoid things that are fried, things that have sugar and the white flour and that type of thing. So there's just going for your whole grains, your beans. That if anyone's interested in doing some research on their own, I highly recommend the Blue Zones, which was it's a Dan Buettner is a researcher from Minnesota, actually, and he participated and conducted a study with National Geographic. And they went around the world looking for communities where people had the longest lives.
Okay.
And then they drew conclusions about, okay, what do all these different areas of the world have in common? Why are these people living so much longer than the average people? And so in one of the common things, I won't spoil all of what he found, but one of the common threads that he saw in all the communities that lived long, they eat beans almost every day. So, and depending on where they are, in Japan, it was soybeans, right? And in In Costa Rica, it would be a different type of bean, maybe black beans or, so there's different, but some kind of bean, right? Because there you're getting your protein, you're getting your fiber. And between those two things, I mean, that's really the fiber. A lot of times I'll get people asking me, well, where do you get your protein? You're eating plants. Where do you get your protein? And it's like, no one, very, very few people in the world and in the US are protein deficient. You really only need about, 50 grams of protein, 100 tops, if you're doing, ridiculous, athletic training. Whereas, some of these other diets are saying, you need 300 or 400 grams of protein a day. That's ridiculous. But, so people aren't protein deficient, but they are fiber deficient. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
And the fiber is, what helps to keep your cholesterol down, to, keep your colon clean, to, prevent cancer. So,
for sure.
That's why beans are your friend, because again, that you get the protein, you get the energy, you get some good complex carbs, and you get the fiber. I mean, they're like magic food. So
they go a long way.
Yeah. And they're cheap too. And that's the other thing too, because people think, okay, if I'm going to eat plants, I have to buy all this organic produce and it's going to be so expensive. But it's like, you know what? Some of the most nutritious food on the planet, you can just beans and rice. Throw some spices in there, you're good to go. And it doesn't get much cheaper than that. So it doesn't have to be expensive.
Because I have some beans upstairs I got to eat, actually. I got a pressure cooker. And if you have like dehydrated, like any of the beans that are not in the cans, come in and that is the fastest way you could cook them is getting a pressure cooker. And I was like,
I love my Instapot. Yep.
Yes. That's what I got. And so that was the first thing that I cooked. I'm like, I've got all these beans and you have to soak them for so long. And then it takes forever for them to cook. And I'm like, hey, we can do this in 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Let's do it. So, and they go, like I said, they go a long way. So, all right. So Blue Zone, I just wanted to write down, because you talked about a couple of things in here that I wanted to add to the show notes, because some people are probably wondering, like me, and maybe want to go back and kind of read on some of the things that you were mentioning. So the Blue Zone, and who'd you say
Dan Buettner
did that research?
Dan Buettner. Correct.
I'm going to get this from you after anyways.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, Terri, that you've got this going on. And of course, we will be sharing her website with you in the show notes. So make sure you go there and check it out. If you're curious about moving into plant-based or adding it to what you're currently doing, or like Terri was mentioning, making small changes, every week or every month to your current eating habits can significantly increase, not only your health, but your life expectancy and your immune system. So I love that is where you're going, because so many people need it. And also it doesn't sound like you're making it complicated.
No.
Which is another thing that can deter a lot of people, like even myself. It's like, I don't always want a bit complicated. I just want it to be simply so I can understand it and make small changes as I go along for myself, for my family, things like that I can incorporate to what I'm already currently doing. Mm-hmm. Now, last question. Do you believe in supplementation, even on the plant-based side? Like greens, plant-based proteins, something like that?
I actually do. But I don't believe in just going out and getting a generic multivitamin. I don't take multivitamin.
Perfect.
But I do. I'm big on testing, and I like getting my blood tested and seeing where I'm at with things. So, I mean, almost everyone in North America is deficient in vitamin D, and it's interesting. I don't know how it is in Canada, but in the United States, they they don't automatically test for it. And even if you ask for it, they will often refuse to test for it. And I think it's because insurance might not cover it for us or whatever the reason is. So I'll go out and I'll pay to get a vitamin D test done myself.
Oh, okay.
But that's huge again for both, preventing cancer and for just immunity in general. So vitamin D is very important. So that's something I supplement even in the summertime. And, to try to have sufficient vitamin D levels. I try to keep mine up around 60. But yeah, that's one thing important. The B12, I'll supplement that as well, which is actually, it's a bacteria that's found in the ground, and when you stop eating meat, you don't get it, as readily because we wash all our vegetables off so much. Like, it didn't used to be an issue because in the olden days when you're farming, you would take a, radish out of the ground and dust off the dirt and take a bite of it. And so you're eating some dirt, which is actually healthy for you. So people are
I
so
still
afraid.
Do that.
People are so afraid of germs. It's like some germs are good for you. But anyways,
eat dirt.
Yes, eat dirt. But yeah, so I'll do like a D and a B12, and then some omega-3s, and generally, people, if they're supplementing omega-3s, they think of fish oils. But if you're trying to avoid fish, and for me, I avoid a lot of fish because of the mercury and the contamination in the fish. So fish actually get their omega-3 by eating algae. So I recommend that you can actually get an algae-based omega-3 supplement. So that's kind of where I get my omega-3s from, and those are kind of my big hitters, that I find people in plant-based diets, tend to be lacking. And there's some good brands out there. I mean, there's a brand called Complement, which I've been taking, that combines those, and so that just simplifies it for me. So I don't have to think about it. It's like it was started by a plant-based athlete, and so that's one way to get them all. Otherwise, again, the best thing to do is get tested, and then whatever's low, supplement it. And there's plant-based proteins as well, and again, just trying to avoid any that have artificial anything, dyes or sweeteners or any of that stuff. But I'll do that. I'm not pounding the plant-based protein or anything like that. It's not like I need my 3 shakes a day, but it's like, okay, if I'm missing a meal, or if I want to have a big smoothie, I'll just throw some in the blender with my berries and my milk and things like that. But so yep, that's a good thing to have in the pantry.
I was like, need some protein, because that's what I was saying. Like, I have plant-based and I have like the whey protein. Yeah. So I was like, switch it out. Like, and probably at least 1 shake a day, because I'm lazy like that.
It's a good way to pack a lot of goodness in there, because
totally. I mean, like, if I don't have to think about like all the extra vitamins and minerals and everything's there, I'm like, why wouldn't I? Because otherwise I just think about what I have to do to actually build the same kind of consistency. Right. I'm like, it's not in my house. Right. But that's amazing, Terri. I love it. So where can everybody find you on social media and find your website?
Sure. My website is plantbasedcomeback.com, all one word. And I'm also on Facebook at Terri Jaksha.
Okay. Are you on Instagram yet?
I'm getting there.
Hire somebody to do it. I'm just telling you right now.
I could probably enlist my teenage girls to help me with that.
Oh, that's perfect job for them. Get one on TikTok and one on Instagram. Awesome. This has been great. I feel so in tune with you, because it's so great to talk about nutrition and immunity and comebacks and athleticism and things like that. And I love it. So everybody, thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Make sure you go and not only subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss another great episode, but if you can, we would love it if you went and give this episode a 5-star and a review, not to mention following on Instagram. And also looking up Terri on Facebook. So with that, everyone, I know he gave you lots of calls to actions. But if you do one, that would be, just go and give us a review. That would be amazing. Thank you so much, Terri. It's been like absolutely, I would say amazing again, but I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Sylvie. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. Have an amazing day, everyone.